The Texas Longhorns became the latest high-profile program to effectively cancel their spring game, joining Ohio State, Nebraska, and USC. And we need to talk about what this means for college football, what this means for spring football, and why this is happening right now. What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. If this is your first time watching the #1 college football show, welcome. Thank you for joining us here. We talk college football every day, 365 days. Means every day. And if you like what you're watching, subscribe by hitting that button and like this video and answer the question in the comments below. Do you think we should have traditional spring games going forward? The answer to that question, I believe, is about flavor. But if you are Steve Sarkisian, like he was talking with Kay Adams, or you're Ryan Day at Ohio State, or you're Lincoln Riley at USC, or you're Matt Rule at Nebraska, there's a very clear and overarching reason for why you are much more likely to cancel your spring game and do something different, right? So we know that the landscape for college football has changed over and over and over again. We've seen more change in the last 10, 11 years than we had the previous 20. And we saw a lot of change in that previous 20. We went from, goodness me, we changed conferences, right? But we got the Big 8 to go to the Big 12. Baylor became a big-time program by joining the Big 12, and it took them a little while, but they got there. We've seen the Pac-12, the Pac-8 become the Pac-10, become the Pac-12. The SEC became the juggernaut conference in all of college football. When I was a kid in the 90s, early 2000s even, nobody spoke about the SEC the way they do now. You spoke about the SEC then like you might the Big 12 now. That's been remarkably changed. But now, since 2014, we've got the college football playoff. We've expanded the college football playoff from 4 teams to 12 teams. It's still an invitational, but it is using an election committee and no computer rankings to make those picks. We've also seen the invention of the transfer portal, which is where guys can go to the compliance office and say, hey, I'm going to transfer. I want out of here, and go into this big old data sheet where every coach in the country can take a look and see if there's somebody they might like, given that they're academically eligible. And then we got immediate eligibility, which was a true game changer, because it used to be if you transferred Division I to Division I, you had to sit out a year. You ain't got to do that anymore. You can transfer as often as you want and stay or go as often as you want. Take a look at Bear Alexander, who's been at USC, Georgia twice, and now Oregon. We've also seen, and this is also massive, name, image, and likeness become the rule of the day. Since the NCAA relaxed its bylaws on athletes making money from their name, image, and likeness in 2021, not only have we seen multi-million-dollar deals for 18, 19, 20-year-olds, right? We've seen EA Sports get back into college football and bring the biggest video game franchise, I believe, in the world back, outside of FIFA. I say in the world, so maybe third, right, behind Madden, because Madden's got such a lead on football right now, and then FIFA. After that, you might be arguing about NBA 2K, if that's who you are, but I don't think those are the same subset of people. I think the people that play Call of Duty, for instance, or Fortnite, all play some version of college football, if not play NBA 2K, college football, Madden, and then also some FIFA if you got the time to do it. Myself, I'm on the simulator, right? I be playing college football 25, or I'm running people down in Gran Turismo and F1 24, right? That said, now we're getting to a space where we've seen more conference realignment, and we've seen more players getting paid more as we head toward another seismic change. Salary cap seems to be coming. If this House versus NCAA settlement gets approved on April 7th, we will see athletic departments get $20.5 million of their own revenue that they now got to split off to pay out to their student athletes across the board. There are going to be challenges to this on Title IX because you got to pay women like you pay men as federal law, but we don't know how that federal law is going to go into effect, and it's not really a law if you can't enforce it. And given what the new administration has been doing, challenging constitutional law and taking on these challenges and winning a few of them, I'm not sure what we're going to see coming out of Title IX being a bugaboo, if you will, an impediment, unless you just want to be right and do right and pay people what they're worth. That said, even if you do that, you're not going to pay every women's basketball player like they're Caitlin Clark, because they're not, right? And you're going to play football players more than you play men's basketball players, because they're worth more at most major universities. There are some outliers here and there, and you know this, right? We don't need to talk about the outliers, but for the majority of people, the revenue-generating sports that have been football, men's basketball, and some baseball teams will be the high earners of that $20.5 million. One of the unintended consequences of all of this is the dissolution of the traditional spring game. I say dissolution because you're still going to have coaches taking advantage of those 15 spring practices, right? But are they going to take place at the front of the spring, in the middle of the spring, at the end of the spring? We'll see. That's always been their prerogative. Usually we've done this in April because that's just when we've done it, right? Herm Edwards tried to do this in February because he thought it was going to be better for the program. We've seen some programs take it all the way back to like May, and depending on what they're recruiting and how they're recruiting has also changed, as a matter of fact. But one of the things that I thought was going to happen here was guys being head coaches, are going to try to protect their assets differently than they have in years past. Assets being the players. It used to be you didn't play anybody that you thought might get hurt, or you couldn't risk them getting hurt. So they just didn't really go through spring practices, and you never let them hit because you need them to be healthy at the start of the season. Now it's not just that. You're not really trying to show other coaches what you got in the cupboard because, well, they might go steal it from you. They might go poach it from you. It's one of the things that I knew was going to happen. I was just curious about how it was going to show up. So like at Ohio State, where they just won the national championship, and they do want to celebrate this, and they have had a parade. But your spring game is one other way to celebrate winning the national championship. They're going to do something like a spring showcase, which I think is going to be like a glorified practice session, which is what spring football has always been in the first place. But are you going to sell it like you do a real football game? No. USC, something similar. Texas may do something similar. Nebraska, them canceling their spring game was the biggest deal to me, because Nebraska's spring game has traditionally been the best attended. Like, their fans love it. They've always loved it. I think they're going to do something to try to satiate that appetite, but it won't be playing football in front of cameras where other people can see. This reminds me a lot of Formula One, frankly, which is one of my favorite sports. Should probably talk more about it. But Colin Chapman had the 78 Lotus come down the line. The 78 Lotus is the progenitor of the F1 car you see now, with the ground effects. It's got the wedge shape and it's got the flaps underneath. So you took an airplane, you invert it. It would suck to the ground the faster you went, right? It changed how people race, changed how they built the cars, right? One of the first men to really take an effect and say, it's not necessarily horsepower that's going to make you faster. It's having a lighter car. What's it made out of, and how aerodynamically efficient is it? And then you go win races. Those of you that know that Red Bull has been running the sport will also know that Adrian Newey, its chief designer of those Red Bull cars, one of the greatest designers of all time, is called the last airbender because he's so good with aerodynamics. One of the reasons we're excited to see what this Aston Martin's going to look like, because he's gone from Red Bull to Aston Martin. All that to say, you got to be ahead, and if you got ahead, you don't want to show anybody anything you got, because that 78 Lotus, Mario Andretti, yes, that Mario Andretti, was like, can I drive this at this new event? And he said, no, because I can't let our competitors see. We have to be able to jump out in front of them. We have to be able to create a lead. We have to hide what we have in the cupboard. Lincoln Riley's always done this. He's always been paranoid about what people may or may not see and how they may or may not see it, because he thinks he's got something. Turns out when we go play football, if you had something, we knew it. If you didn't have something, we knew that too. There's no hiding Jeremiah Smith at Ohio State. There isn't. We know about him, right? I think it goes back to me and how I want to get down. I think this is important. Barry Switzer would say, hey, Nebraska would watch us practice. We would watch them practice. We know what they're running. They know what we're running. We're still going to go out there and try to maul each other. It's about confidence. It's about how you are displaying that confidence. But if you got a bunch of donors that don't want you to have a football game, they're footing the bill for $20, $25 million of a roster, maybe you're just going to do it their way.